Well, who is the next prophet in our story of truth that understood the patterning of 12? Who is it that began to understand the higher dimensions? It was our prophet, Joseph. The 12 sons of Jacob. Now let's go so that we understand the story. And we're saying we're starting to begin to understand the unseen world, the higher dimensions, the more enlightened dimensions of the higher realms on this path of ascension. And we're continuing in the pattern of 12 so that you can understand it. Now we quoted from Revelation chapter 12 verse 1. Now I bring to you the Quran, the final revelation. And since we're talking about 12 and relating you to the story of truth, and now the story of truth from the unseen, we should wonder, well, is the same pattern running in the Quran? And so we go to chapter 12, which is the story or chapter called Yusuf or Joseph. Now Joseph, we know, is the one who was able to understand the higher dimensions and that of the astral world or the heavenly world or the spirit world or the dream world. And so I present to you and recite to you from the Holy Quran, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alif Lam Ra, تلك آيات الكتاب المبين إنا أنزلناه قرآنا عربيا لعلكم تعقلون نحن نقص عليك أحسن القصص بما أوحينا إليك هذا القرآن وإن كنت من قبله لمن الغافلين إذ قال يوسف لأبيه يا أبتي إني رأيت 11 كوكبا والشمس والقمر ورأيتهم لي ساجدين. Chapter 12, chapter called Joseph, Alif Lam Ra. These are letters that we call Huruf al-Maqatta'at, and in the future, by the will of the Lord, I will be doing a video on the importance of these letters, for it is clear what they mean now. But the Lord Most High says in the first verse, these are the verses of a clear book. Verily, the Lord says, we have sent it down as an Arabic recital, an Arabic Quran, in order that you may understand. Now, because I told you we are telling you the story of truth, of course, the best stories are those which are in the Quran. If you who are upon the light haven't looked to the Quran, and if you have been believing the dark ones and tell you, oh, the Quran is a book of hate, stop listening to them and just open and read it for yourselves, right? Aren't you enlightened enough? Aren't you able enough to read? Read and read it for yourselves. Don't listen to the dark ones. The Lord says in this verse, we relate to you the best of stories through the revelation unto you. A divine inspiration, and you used to be among those who knew nothing about it. And remember, your Lord says, when Joseph, you see, Joseph said to his father, O my father, verily I saw in a dream 11 kawkab, 11 planets, or 11 floating light earths, or 11 shining stars, and the sun and the moon, and I saw all of them prostrating themselves down to me. Now, if you go back to the commentary, the scholars will say, some of them, that the word kawkab in Arabic can refer to planets, floating in the sea of space, or it can refer to shining stars, and there is difference of opinion amongst the scholars. And here is an interesting thing, that if you look to some of the commentators of the Quran, you see that Joseph, in the first process of the ascension journey, is to begin to understand your dreams. And Joseph began from a very early age, and he said, I see 11 planets bowing themselves down to me, and the sun and the moon also bowing down to me, as a sign of who Joseph was going to be. And Ibn Kathir, one of the most noted scholars of explanation of Quran, or what we call tafsir, or exegesis of the Quran, said that in Joseph's dream, the 11 stars represent obviously his brothers, who were the 11 other leaders of the tribes, the 12 tribes of Israel, along with Joseph himself, and that the sun and the moon represent his mother and father. But also many of the scholars have said this represents the fact that there could be 12 planets around the sun and the moon. Now, this concept is now begun to be understood by many people, and many people are arguing of the fact that there possibly were 12 planets. And then you have some of the ancient tales of the Sumerians and the Anunaki, who have falsely claimed to be the creators of mankind, when we are telling you a plain and simple truth that that is not so. And you have some of these modern day pseudo-scholars that are out there in various paranormal fields. Of course, you have Sitchin and his concept of 12 planets. And I will say that clearly we see some of the planets in this dimension, and maybe there are planets in orbits that are further away, such as the Nibiru Planet X concept. But let me throw out another idea out there, that since we're talking about the unseen, and we're talking about higher dimensions and different dimensions, that I might suggest a possible alternative. Now here I'm making a caveat, and I want to make it clear that when I speak to you by Allah's name, as I have always given you a guarantee, I am telling you the plain and simple truth. So when I say here is a possible other understanding from the unseen world that I do not know for sure, then I will give you that as something from myself and say, I don't know whether this is true or not. This is a possible understanding, that it is possibly true that maybe we have 9 planets in our third dimension, and that it could be that there are planets in higher dimensions that vibrate at a level or frequency that is beyond our visible spectrum, and they are there in orbit around our sun, and we can't see them. That is a possible understanding that is not specifically proven or verifiable, and that is from myself. And so when I say things, I want to make it clear that if something is from myself, from my own understanding, and not from the story of truth that is revealed, then I need to make that clear so that you understand it. But the fact that there are humans throughout the universe, and that there are other species of jinns or extra-dimensional beings, both dark ones and light ones, is something that we have known of from the beginning of time and has been revealed in the Quran in many places. And so we go back to this concept of understanding 12 out of Surah 12 or chapter 12 of Joseph, where the Lord Most High says, don't you understand the story of truth, that in this book called the Quran, the Lord Most High is saying, I, your Lord, is giving to you the best stories that are revealed if you were to understand the stories. And because as a Muslim I am telling you that in this next phase that we are approaching, O light workers and my brethren, dear ones, know that the Quran is the book that is going to start being able to be used to understand the stories of all of the dimensions.